Well, folks, today on Rethink Real Estate, we've got Jonathan Bell. Jonathan is one of the co-founders of Wingman, which is a virtual assistant service that was originally founded in Australia. Now, Jonathan is in Australia. He's working there at the moment, running a property management business, and he's used virtual assistants in order to grow a property management business from zero all the way to 2,500 doors. Now, that impressive element of his growth within his business has then attracted him with virtual assistants to then offer the training and services that he's doing in the real estate community through a company by the name of Wingman. Now, one of the exciting parts about this is that Jonathan has approached us here in North America saying, hey, how can we create virtual assistant services for the real estate industry? He's got a really great vision when it comes to virtual assistants. All of us have this incredible stigma when it comes to it, that I really do believe that with the personal touch of what Jonathan and his other business partner, Jonathan actually is his name as well, is that what they can actually do within the real estate services of the business. We're excited to explore this in North America with them. It's a great story around how he has used virtual assistants in order to grow his business, but also how he's used virtual assistants trained on his model to help in sales and property management within Australia. And again, looking to do something similar like that over here in North America. Thanks so much. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. Jonathan, welcome to Rethink Real Estate.
Thanks so much, Ben. Looking forward to being here.
Well, just a full disclaimer is that this is going to be one of those episodes that the listeners, every now and then I throw an Australian into the mix of things, mate, and it gets very Australian. Okay.
I love it.
Just very Australian. It's like for those that know Josh, like Josh has been out of the US for almost 5 or 6 years now. But Josh still sounds like he's in the middle of the backcountry Australia. Nobody can really understand him properly because he gets real ochre.
I should have started by saying, hey, mates, instead of hey, Ben.
Oh, that's it. There you go. But, mate, we're thrilled to have you with us today. But all I wanted to do is to begin this episode is that I want to talk about your real estate story and I want to talk about your journey in real estate because there's a unique product offering and there's a unique thing that you're building out for real estate agents in Australia, and we're looking to bring it to North America as well. So let's just start off with your story and your journey.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ben. And I was in New York a couple of weeks ago and had an awesome time. And you Americans know how to party. But I started my real estate journey 5 years ago. In Australia, it's very common to own a property management business alongside a sales business. And property management typically was the lost cousin of the real estate industry. So people didn't really give it the love and care that it probably needs to be managing these multi-million-dollar assets. So about 5 years ago, with limited real estate experience, I said, you know what, I want to have a crack at starting my own real estate agency, and I want it to be a property management specialist business. So starting from my second bedroom and just got a little keyboard in my room and basically just started cold calling and meeting affiliates in the industry. And then one management turned into 100 to 300, and we're now at, after 5 years, 2,500 managements, and we're growing by about 100 new managements a month. So we're on track to do 100 new managements in May. So it's been an awesome ride. And then through that journey, I discovered the power of the Philippines. And I always found it really interesting that in the Philippines, there was this stigma where you think of this call center and you think of this horrible service and bad internet and unreliable. And the only reason you go there is to cut costs. Whereas I had the exact opposite experience. I was lucky enough to meet a guy at a car wash who had a really successful car wash. And I went and met him, and he told me, mate, you've got to use the Philippines. Like, they are so good at what they do. You can get qualified accountants. You can get people in call centers. They're better than any Australian you could ever employ. So then he introduced me to someone over there, and I was lucky enough to meet a lady called Jess Villa, who was my first ever staff member. And 5 years later, she's still with me now. And we've got a team of 30 in the Philippines who work within my real estate business. So then about 2 years ago, I said, why is every agency in Australia not doing this? It's been amazing for us. And because of our growth story, a lot of people were coming and trying to find out how we've grown the way we have. So we started helping other agencies in Australia do what we do. And now we've got around 500 staff in the Philippines and work with about 250 agencies across Australia.
Do you solely work in the property management space, or is it sales as well?
No, sales as well. So we actually thought we started in property management because that's where I started, but we've actually found it's easier in sales than property management because there's a lot more documents that property management. There's so many moving parts. You've got tenants, landlords, tradies. Working for a sales agent or an agency is actually we found easier, and we've probably got 60% of is property management and 40% sales.
Okay. So I think that there's a couple of questions that stem out of that, but obviously for context to the audience, like having that property management business, as you said, is the lost cousin to the sales business in Australia, whereas in North America it's just not a thing. You might have a couple of agents that do it here and there from a property management perspective. It's usually a separate company, or it's usually an institutional person or company that is managing their own assets and doors, whereas you obviously have had a skill set of growing a property management business. And again, I still think that, with our property management business that we have within North America, we're growing that steadily as well. And we really want to make sure that, we're building that element of the business, because here, while it's not as valued as what it is in Australia, is that it's certainly an opportunity in order to grow something here. And what you guys offer from a service perspective is something that's very intriguing. Hence the reason that we're trying to do some type of partnership with you guys coming to North America. But I'm fascinated to understand the different elements of that Philippines, because you're 100% right, is that there's this essence of like the Philippines or that remote worker that you think about, broken English, you think about bad internet, you think about like the delay on the phone call, you think about all of those different things. How have you guys changed that stigma? Because in one way, the Philippines is a little bit easier to integrate into North America because a lot of them have got American accents, whereas in Australia, even if you've got any type of accent really whatsoever, there's a bit of a stigma towards that immediately. So I'm really interested to see how you broke that barrier in the Australian marketplace.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference between outsourcing and offshoring.
Okay.
So outsourcing. In my head, outsourcing is when you've got a big call center and you outsource your whole customer service team to the Philippines.
Right.
I don't believe that you're going to have good quality. Offshoring is when you treat them like another staff member in your business and they work alongside the other Australians or the other Americans. So I think the biggest mindset shift, and I think the thing to make it work the best, is just to treat them like any other staff member in your office.
Okay.
So you have to meet with them daily and give them some direction for the day. You have to continue to upskill them. And I think if you just treat them like an AI bot, and you outsource the whole thing and expect to have nothing to do with it, it won't work. Yeah. Whereas if you bring them into your team and you integrate them well, it will be an absolute game changer for your business. That's number one. And I think the other part of it is training. So in the Philippines, they don't know what a hot water system is because they don't have hot water systems. Right. In Australia, we call electricians sparkies. So they don't know what a sparky is. The average house size is 40 to 60 square meters. How many feet is that?
Oh, I think like 40 to 60 is like 40 to 60 square meters would be 400 square feet. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about the size of a bedroom. That's the size of their house. So they don't know what a nice, they don't know what a living area is. So you've got to teach them all that stuff. So our big point of difference as a business that I think's given us such good cut through is we train the offshore team for 3 months before going into any business. So we teach them on the culture of the country. We teach them on all the CRM systems, the softwares, how to do contracts, all the legislation. So we teach them on all that. So by that time they go into an agency who's typically already very time poor, they're ready to go, rather than an agent having to sit with them for 6 hours a day teaching them how to do a contract.
So can you give us some use case examples, mate? Because that's one of the things that give us some examples of it working in Australia in those type of businesses, so that then we can try and draw some parallels to the North American business, and how we might see it fitting here. Because I think that there's something that a lot of people that might be listening might be going, hey, there might be something similar already in existence, or there might be something, that we already know. And what you and myself sort of found was that there was there's no middle ground. There's either you independently finding a assistant in the Philippines that is or a remote worker or in India or something along those lines that you need to train from scratch, or they're these big conglomerates that definitely have got a lot of offshoring that they do, but it's really based on these massive multinational companies that are doing that.
Mm.
There's no in between element, and there's nothing that specializes in the real estate space that is so specific. So give us some examples and some use cases of what happens in Australia, whether it be in property management, whether it be in sales. What are the things that people are plugging into? And just full disclaimer to everybody listening, we haven't figured out how we're going to enter the North American market yet. We don't know what the model is. So love feedback from anybody. And Jono's going to be here and he's going to be going through that. And you get to meet him and you get to talk to him if you're interested in talking and giving him some feedback around different things that we can do. But realistically, mate, give us some examples.
Yeah, well, some Americans might like this story. My receptionist, his name's Richard, and when he started with me, his job prior was selling penny stocks on Wall Street. So he's actually trained to have a full American accent, and he's the best receptionist I've ever had. And he's in the Philippines, and he's a fraction of the price. He's a civil engineer by trade, and he's answering 70 to 80 calls a day.
So that's somebody, so receptionist, basically somebody that's handling the inbound for your property management business of 2,500 properties or doors.
Yep.
And when a tenant calls into a certain line, he takes that message and then filters it to the next direction.
Yeah, well, we've actually trained him where he can answer 99% of the questions. So he's actually the gatekeeper. So we don't want it to go past him because then it's distracting our Australian team from dollar productive activities. So yeah, he's been amazing. Another one, so there's probably sales and then property management. In property management, and forgive me if I'm saying Australian terms here, but doing all the lease renewals, so all the leases, all the arrears, organising all the maintenance and the trades, organising quotes, doing all the invoicing after the quotes come through, following up on any information that's required from tenants. The vacancy rates in Australia are so low, so vetting all the applications because we get so many applications per property, checking all their bank statements to say that they're earning what they said they're going to do, and then preparing information and preparing a lot of the back end for the property manager to send to the landlords or the clients. Right. So that's on the property management side. And then sales, we call them EBUs, so high performing teams. They work really well in there. So they can be doing two parts. One is like office admin, so doing all the contracts, organizing building and pest, creating call lists for the agents, managing their CRM system and all their data, basically all that back end. And then the other part is prospecting as well. So there's an opportunity where they can be nurturing databases and prospecting on behalf of the agents to really be giving them an opportunity to get low-hanging fruit for them to sign more deals.
Yeah, I think that the infrastructure things are, it's one of those things though, Jonathan, that I remember when we were sitting down trying to brainstorm with stuff to come up with, it's kind of whatever you can think of that they can ultimately do. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some people that are incredibly creative with saying, hey, these are the roles and these are the things that I need somebody to be trained on and that they need to do. And the thing about it is that a lot of people think about AI and, oh no, AI is going to be able to do this eventually, but they're not going to be trained on the individual specific systems that then you have in the way that you want things to actually operate. And I've got to be honest, is going through and breaking down the operational models of many agents, whether it be in Australia, New Zealand, the US, even in some of the stuff that we've been involved in South Africa, is that everybody works really different. They work in a very individual way. And I think it's not about, everyone thinks that, no, there's got to be a standard operating system. No, there's got to be your standard operating system that then you can acclimate somebody to an individual portion of it to make it way easier. And I see a very big opportunity here. Now, there's a part that there's probably somebody on the other end of this listening to it going, I don't really want to take the time to do that. But that is what your company is going to specialize in. Come up with the role, come up with the responsibility, and you guys will ensure that they are given a trained and ready person to take that individual part on with its own individual systems and that individual way that person operates, yeah?
Exactly. And also then ongoing training as well. So if there's something you want them to be upskilled in, or you see an opportunity for them to start to do marketing or other things in your business, then we can then continue to upskill them whilst they're still working in your business. So
the couple like rapid fire questions here, mate, because employing somebody is a difficult task, regardless of whether, like, it's a difficult task when you get to interview 10 candidates and they're sitting in front of you to try and assess whether or not they're the wrong or right individual. How do you guys make sure that there's not a great deal of churn within that role, or is there churn?
So we do about 1,000 interviews a week. and we put about 100 people a week through our training academy. So that training academy is there for two reasons. In that 3 months, if someone's not showing a willingness to learn or turning up late or not doing the right thing, we can get rid of them and they're not the right fit. Agents and agencies have a high expectation of what they want. So if the Philippines team can't fill that, we understand that and we won't put them through the academy. And then the second part of it is that we have a very healthy way. Like we very much promote a work-life balance in the Philippines. We set them up from home. So in the Philippines, the traffic, there's 18 million people in Manila, and it's actually quicker to walk than drive. So working from home is like the holy grail for a Philippine staff member, because if they don't, they have to go to an office. It takes them about 4 hours every morning to get to the office and 4 hours home. So they'll be leaving at 5 a.m., getting home at 10 p.m. Monday to Friday. Whereas if they work from home, they actually get to spend time with their kids, and working the American hours, they actually work over the night time so that they can sleep throughout the day and spend time with their family throughout the day as well. So they love this job. Also, the American dollar is very strong, so they get paid really well. So they're getting paid really well. They're getting to work from home, and they get to work with a business really closely with businesses in America. It gives them that American dream or that Australian dream as well of getting to interact with people like us. So we have not found much churn. It's very rare for us to lose someone. They're very loyal and hardworking.
So if there is churn, how do you guys handle somebody else? Because one of the biggest problems that I see within any sales infrastructure is, let's say that I'm a high performing team. Let's say I'm a high performing individual. I want to take my business to the next level. I want to get to X amount of GCI or X amount of volume of deals. One of the things that I see hold a lot of people back is their inability to let go. There's no question about that, and that's a bigger problem that obviously you and I can lie down on the psychology couch and deal with at another time. But then there's this other problem is that they don't have their own it's a reverse analysis. And what I mean is that they bring somebody on to create the systems for them rather than have an idea of how they want their business to function and then get somebody on to do that. So then that creates this problem that somebody does become a little bit indispensable, because at the end of the day, they created the systems within their business. So if somebody does churn out, how is that documented? What system is used in order for them to sort of lap into it, so to speak, or not lose any traction? Or is there a bit of loss?
Yeah, really good question, and something we spend a lot of time on, and we call them SOPs, standard operating procedures.
Okay.
So in the background, while they're working for these businesses, they're creating Loom videos, Zoom videos, and full task lists of everything they've learned and how to do it, operating procedures. So if they ever left, or when they leave, right, at some point in 10, 20 years, the next person can take all of that information and we train them. So by the time you transition the next person into the business, there's a very small amount of disruption to the agency.
Yep. And then, so you mentioned that daily interaction is an important part to get the most out of people. Is that something that you would expect from somebody that, say, hires an individual or is using one of the services? Because again, we don't know whether or not at the moment the US is going to be offering individuals, which I'm sure that we'll be able to get to eventually. But we're thinking of it more like as a service metric of, hey, someone can be a transaction manager, or we can power like let's say that I'm a broker of an office, is that I can have a full-time person that can do anything that you need at any point in time, or we have 2 or 3 people that lap over the hours, that they have 24-hour access to somebody that is up to speed on the office process or the contracts or the way that things operate in order to get something done. There's services and there'd be individual things. I guess that from a hours perspective, it's sort of running through my mind at the moment. Is that how we would have to make it work to lap the hours together so that people could be available at all times?
Yeah, because we let them work from home, they can work whatever hours and reflect whatever an agency needs. So they can, we've got agents in Australia. In our business, we have a tenant concierge. So we're open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay.
We've got 2 people answering. So part of our point of difference is if you call us from 7 a.m. till 9 p.m., we answer every call,
right.
Which is a big point of difference in Australia. So they can be used for activities to give points of difference like that and work hours that you would need. Did that answer the question, Ben?
Yeah, it did. There's a part of me also that thinks about limitations though as well, Jonathan. Like I think that there's like this expectation from people thinking that there's, because they're in, and again, this is a lack of better terminology, so forgive me for saying this, but they're in a third world country. So there is certain limitations that you think of immediately that there will be in the
Yeah.
business. Where have you seen those limitations get hit or not?
I've just continually daily get blown away by their skill sets. Like, we only employ people with a university degree. If they're not managed correctly, like any employee in the world, they will not perform to the way you want. So it's, if you think that you're going to employ someone and never speak to them and they're going to do an amazing job, it's never going to happen. That's probably the biggest limitation. And also, just front of mind is, like, even I think about this, like when you have a meeting, if it's with someone in person, it's really easy to interact. Whereas it's really valuable to have the offshore person sit in the meeting and understand the terminology and understand what's going on. But it's the last thing you think about because they're not in the office.
Yeah.
So that's probably just always having it front of mind. We've got posters in our office saying reminders. We have TVs in our office where they can log in through and they sit it with our team every day. So you can do a few things like that. But even myself, sometimes I get frustrated. I have this meeting and I'm like, why did I not get my offshore team in it?
Yeah. I think that's something that because I'm thinking about different ways to implement it into my daily life, right? Okay. Is that if I just had them sit on every single Zoom call that I'm on, and today I've had 8 Zoom calls before jumping in and doing this interview with you. Imagine just them sitting in there and being like, even giving them the initiative going, hey, give me an email at the end of everything that you see, telling me the things that need to happen out of that meeting and the action items and what you can take care of for me. Like, even having them do that could really change things. Because I remember there's a company by the name of, I think it's called Accenture. And there's the gentleman who founded that company, and this is for like massive, big Fortune 500 companies that they do some of the offshoring for, is that they have every member of their staff actually put a Loom video on and just go through their screen. Like basically the Loom is on all day, and it basically documents their entire day of what they do. And they do that for 2 weeks, and then they give it to an offshore person. And then the offshore person comes in and goes, this is what I've watched you do for 2 weeks. This is what I could take out of your plate and give you this much more time back. Like this is the type of stuff that these guys can custom do, right? Or you guys can customize them to be if we needed to, correct?
So cool. Yeah, it's so cool. Totally. And like the cost, right? If you do, especially the commissions in America, you get one sale a year. That pays for more than their annual salary. So if it gives you 5 hours a week, which ultimately gets you one sale a year, you've paid a full-time staff member. If you get 2, you've doubled your money.
Yeah.
So the cost first benefit is just I've said in my in a few talks in Australia is every agency in Australia would benefit in some way from utilizing the Philippines in the right way.
So let's use a few more examples, because I think that this is one of those things that it's funny. Callista, who is my better half, but also the operations manager for a lot of what we do, is that the moment that I brought this up with her, she's like, no, this isn't going to work. I just, no way. And then you go, and then you get her in front of you guys, and then she's like, oh, this could be really cool. Like, because you're talking about the success that you had. But she needed examples. She needed like genuine use cases and like task lists and things like that to actually be able to see it. So maybe we could get a little bit specific, mate, with some of the people that you like, some sales professionals in Australia in their business of what somebody's actually doing. If you could think of a few of those, and maybe some property management stuff, whatever it is, just to get people's minds sort of churning on this stuff.
Yeah, love it. So a buyer's agent. So in Australia, you're a buyer's agent or you're a sales agent. I know in America you can be both.
Yep.
But one that they do is every single buyer, they put in their CRM system and detail exactly what they want. So their name, how much they want to spend, beds, bath, and then every single property they have, they match it in the CRM as well. And if there's any match, they then send that to the buyer's agent and say, hey, I've seen a match. This client's inquired. You've got this property that's available. Then the agent can take that data and then call and say, hey, I've got a property for you.
So there's this product in the US called Real Scout, and there's a couple of other ones that basically you can hook your buyer up to a search, right? And it automatically sends out the search, and it tells you whether they interact with it. But I guarantee you that 90% of the opportunities within that is missed. If you had somebody going through, and even just on the back end of Real Scout that we have available to our agents, is that they monitored their Real Scout and said, hey, this is a match for this one. And they sent you an email going, hey, call, here's the name and number. this is the match property. If you give them a call today, like, so that's just like a really big trigger or another element of watching it on your own behalf, like sort of got your back, so to speak, on different things. So
Exactly.
so they will run the CRM for them essentially.
Yeah, so one of the really cool things is my BDM. So they're out there growing the business.
So
They go to a
BDM for clarification is a business development manager within a property management business. Their job is to go out there and get leases and new management opportunities for the property management business. Yep.
Yeah, so they go into a house, and then a landlord or an investor says, yes, I want you to go ahead. They get on their phone, they send a WhatsApp message saying, hey, send them it's called a Form 6, but an agency agreement to sign them up with these fees, this terms and conditions, and put the property online on this date.
Oh, wow.
That's literally all they do. Then the offshore person drafts it all, sends them the proposal, sends them the contract, puts it in their CRM, and creates the full 30-day plan to get it online ready for rent. From the second they leave the house to getting back to the office, they don't have to do anything else.
I think that maybe this is something that I'm naive, and you're going to tell me I'm an idiot for saying this, but electronic signature has only become a thing over the last couple of years in Australia, correct?
Yes.
So this is just where I think that I think it's a bad thing for North America. And the reason I say that is that electronic signature was around when I got here 10 years ago. Like, it was just the regular thing that everybody would do. It wasn't the normal to get an actual wet signature on thing. It was DocuSign was just a huge thing even then. And I really think that it's done bad things to the way that people operate their business, certainly in a real estate space. Because Australia has been so late to the party with electronic signature, what I think it's allowed is for them to have a greater appreciation with having the electronic signature so in depth into their business now that they can offshore that stuff and it becomes easier and hand off a lot more. So I can see where a lot of them are using this from a process perspective, because there's the argument that people could make is that, oh no, I'd never have them do the paperwork because the paperwork is so important or whatever. It's actually an excuse, really, okay, in order for you to just fill your life full of busy work, because these people will probably execute on it better than what you could, or if not 90% of the way there, that you could actually have an approval process before it goes out that then you look it over or whatever it is, just so you don't have to do the generation of it. I can see that being a massive source. But there's one thing that I just want to double click on is that you said WhatsApp, because I I would love the fact that if I had somebody that I could communicate over text immediately and all the time, like, that would be amazing.
Yep. We do in our team, we send them an iPhone.
Okay.
So iMessage, so you FaceTime audio them, you can FaceTime them, you can text them.
Right. And then what about like voice recording? Just like, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Can you do this?
Yeah, I do it all the time. They book my flights to America, like, everything, right? So they, the amount of videos I do, or video, like audios when I'm driving. Hey, can you do this? Hey, can you prepare this? Can you do an audit of this? I'm thinking about this. Like, then they take it and run with it.
How good are they admitting that they, like, because the one thing that would wear me a little bit thin, Jonathan, is that let's say that I'm like pumping them with all of these ideas. Hey, can you get me the 5 different flights to, let's say, to Brisbane on these dates, and can you compare the prices and the arrival times and and just be specific? And then they didn't know how to do that, but then they went and did it and it was wrong when it came back to you. That would bother me more than them just saying, hey, look, sorry, I don't know how to do that. Can you explain more? Yeah. That's what that's their feedback loop. Is that kind of how they operate?
They're typically very shy, and they don't. So, the Filipino culture is backwards in regards to, like, if you're in a corporate office and you make a mistake, you get worried about getting fired.
Right.
So they don't want to make mistakes, and they're very shy to ask questions. So part of our training academy is Australian culture. We would rather you ask than just go away and make a mistake. Like, ask us and interact with us. So we teach them on that. Naturally, if you just went to the Philippines and employed someone, they would go and make the mistake and bring it back just because they're too worried about asking any questions. And it's really sad, but in the Philippines, they don't see Americans and Australians on the same level as them. So they see us higher. So they the night before the interview, if you were interviewing one, they won't sleep. They'll be sweating. They'll be so nervous. They're so shy. So it takes time for them to build that confidence, but we try and spend a lot of time with them at the start and say, time is really important to Americans and Australians. So be respectful and turn up early and just ask questions when they're not going to bite.
Wonderful, mate. Well, leading question as we wrap up things here is that, let's say that with the evolution of where AI is going and things along those lines as well, what do you see as the future for virtual assistants, mate? Like from a VA perspective and an outsourcing side of things, what's the space for the future for you guys? Like, what's the runway? What's the plan? Apart from just getting bigger, is there a future scope?
Yeah. I'm super excited by the future, and I'm super excited by AI. I think that when people say offshoring, they call it an it. It's not an it, it's a person. It's like when they go, oh, it doesn't work, or it's gonna go away. Well, they're human beings, and it's no different. If AI is going to take over offshore, that means they're taking over everyone's job. So I think it's going to be a combination. I think we use AI. So a combination of AI, offshore, and ultimately what's going to happen is AI will take a lot of the lower level jobs. The Philippines will push up, and then the Americans or the Australians will push up again. So it just means everyone's going to be doing more dollar productive activities and doing more output. And I just think that I think we just need to embrace AI and use it the best way we can and keep evolving how we all work.
Well, mate, I'm excited for you guys to get your hands into our business, but more so like from a raw perspective, we're not trying to promise it to be anything that it's not, or anything that, or overpromise anything that from the very beginning. We're all going to explore this together and sort of go, hey, what is the best fit for the culture within, first of all, real estate, first of all, in the individual agent's life, in the overall company's life, in the franchise's perspective, all of that stuff. So, mate, we're excited to explore it with you, and look forward to having you on here a couple of times over the next journey or the next little while, so that then we can keep enhancing and keep everybody up to date.
Yeah, absolutely. And can't wait to have you in Brizzy soon, Ben.
That's right. Indeed. Thanks, Jonathan.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.